Penguin Random House Audio presents Becoming Steve Jobs: The Evolution of a Reckless Upstart into a Visionary Leader by Brent Schlender and Rick Tetzeli. Read for you by George Newbern. Author's Note: The reporting and writing of this book is the work of two authors. The two of us have worked together for years, going back to our time together at Fortune magazine. For Becoming Steve Jobs, we spent 3 years researching, interviewing, reporting, writing, and editing together. That said, in the narrative you're about to read, we decided, for convenience's sake, to use the first-person singular throughout to refer to Brent. Brent is the one who had a relationship of almost a quarter century with Steve Jobs, so using the word I made it much easier to tell our story. Prologue. You're new here, aren't you? Those were his first words to me. His last, 25 years later, would be, I'm sorry. Already he had turned the tables on me. After all, I was the reporter, the one who was supposed to be asking the questions. I had been warned about the unique challenges of interviewing Steve Jobs. The night before, over beers, my new colleagues at the San Francisco Bureau of the Wall Street Journal had told me to bring a flak jacket to this first meeting. One of them said, only half-jokingly, that interviewing Jobs was often more combat than questioning. It was April 1986, and Jobs was already a journal legend. Bureau lore had it that he had dressed down another journal reporter by posing this straightforward question: Do you understand anything at all? Anything at all about what we're discussing? I'd had plenty of experience with real flak jackets during my years reporting in Central America in the early 1980s. I'd spent much of that time in El Salvador and Nicaragua, where I'd interviewed everyone from truck drivers motoring through war zones to American military advisors in the jungle, to contracomandantes in their hideouts, to presidents in their palaces. On other assignments, I'd met with obstreperous billionaires like T. Boone Pickens and H. Ross Perot and Li Ka-shing, with Nobel Prize winners like Jack Kilby, with rock stars and movie idols, renegade polygamists, and even the grandmothers of would-be assassins. I wasn't easily intimidated. Yet, for the full 20-minute drive from my home in San Mateo, California, to the headquarters of Next Computer in Palo Alto, I brooded and fretted about how best to interview Jobs. Part of my unease came from the fact that, for the first time in my experience as a journalist, I would be calling on a prominent business leader who was younger than I. I was 32 years old. Jobs was 31 and already a global celebrity, hailed, along with Bill Gates, for having invented the personal computer industry. Long before Internet mania started churning out wunderkinds of the week, Jobs was technology's original superstar, the real deal with an astounding, substantial record. The circuit boards he and Steve Wozniak had assembled in a garage in Los Altos had spawned a billion-dollar company. The personal computer seemed to have unlimited potential, and as the co-founder of Apple Computer, Steve Jobs had been the face of all those possibilities. But then, in September of 1985, he had resigned under pressure, shortly after telling the company's board of directors that he was courting some key Apple employees to join him in a new venture to build computer workstations. The fascinated media had thoroughly dissected his departure, with both Fortune and Newsweek putting the ignominious saga on their covers. In the 6 months since, the details of his new startup had been kept hush-hush, in part because Apple had filed lawsuits trying to prevent Jobs from hiring away its employees. But Apple had finally dropped those suits. And now, according to the publicist from Jobs' PR agency, who called my boss at the Journal, Steve was willing to do a handful of interviews with major business publications. He was ready to start the public fan dance that would begin to reveal in detail what exactly Next was up to. I was thoroughly fascinated and equally wary. I didn't want to get taken in by the notoriously charismatic Mr. Jobs.